Hi everybody, this is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you so much for joining me. So today's video is on the topic of sexually transmitted demons. Thank you so much for taking a second to like my video. If you are interested in one-on-one classes, coaching, courses, please contact me at worldpeaceprojects.global. Now, this topic has been something I've thought about and talked about for years and years. And recently I have had 3 different friends, just in conversation, tell me about how they have had experiences where during sexual intercourse and engagement with somebody, they have seen the demon in the other person come out, whether they see it energetically in their face, in their eyes, it pops out and looks at them. So now they're acutely aware that they're engaging sexually with the demon. And then 2 of these people told me that, later, when they're just mulling around their home or whatever, the demon shows up as well to make itself known. This may have scared one of them. The other one was just like, oh, the entity is here, right? So this is a topic that I think a lot of people, probably everybody, has dealt with. Doesn't mean they're conscious of it. I have definitely had my fair share of this. So I wanted to address it because it is something that can absolutely drain our life force. It is avoidable or correctable. And I'm going to give you some very specific understandings, the backstory, details, navigating the anatomy as usual, right? So you might see my eyes track over to the side of the screen because as usual, I've made a bunch of notes on this and I want to make sure I get to all of these points. So seduction and sexual exchange is an agreement. It's a contractual binding that happens. Now, in any time we're sexually engaging with somebody, we are making agreements, sexually speaking, with their sexual body. There will always be a tether. This is a very powerful tether. And if we are sexually exchanging, even if it's just a one-night stand or a long-time partner, everything in between here, if we're sexually exchanging with somebody that has demonic or attachments or possibly is a demon incarnate, then there's an absolute contract that is instantly created, and it's quite binding, with the demonic force that is using that human as a host, or maybe they are a demon in form. This also is a big part of why people have so much difficulty detaching from unhealthy sexual partners, or maybe sex is a part of the situation or the relationship that they know isn't fulfilling. Maybe both parties agree to this, but it's kind of like kryptonite, right? This is always a big reason involved in it. It's not the only reason, but it definitely keeps courting to where, moth to a flame type energy, even if it's not good for you. Now, something to understand that's very important around demonic attachments through sex is tracking back to the history and understanding the timelines and the hierarchy of archdemons. Throughout the ages, the archdemons have always done marriage rites, ritual marriage with soul aspects. So let's say, now I'm talking about other timelines, right? So we have all of these timelines, these lifetimes. This is all my perspective, right? This is how I perceive it. These archdemons understand that when they marry energetically and contractually, they can bind that soul to them throughout the ages. Because the archdemons and the demonic principalities do not have limitation like us through the timelines and the ages. They can bounce in and out of each one. The more they contract with your soul energy throughout the timelines, the more they can anchor and fortify the tethering that they have. So they'll often crop back up in another lifetime. And besides all of the ways that you may already know how to clear out demonic attachments, through dissolving and clearing cords, doing the healing work that attracted you to the person that's hosting the demon in the first place, finding your own trauma, wounding, all of this, right? On top of all of that, a pivotal, very critical piece to healing and clearing once and for all the demonic attachments or the demon energies playing in somebody's field is tracking back to the archdemon that holds domain. Now, when we're engaging sexually with somebody that is a demon or has demonic attachments, the demon that is in their field may just be a minion. It doesn't mean it's going to be an archdemon, but it may be an archdemon. It commonly is. Though all of the archdemons hold principality and legiancy and hierarchy. So, there's that pyramid down effect where even if it's a minion, they're going to have to, they're overseen by an archdemon. Now, it's important to understand which archdemon you're dealing with, because that frequency signature is the marriage contract, the energetic marriage contract that has to be broken throughout the ages, throughout time and space. Because basically, the archdemon through minion, through direct contact energetically, has tracked you back through this timeline to refortify the marriage contracts that they have already anchored in another timeline. Now, the Borg, the AI, the interdimensionals, the extraterrestrials, technologies, etc., all access people through their sexual body. So in everything I'm talking about, in general, we can put those entities and energies and experiences in an umbrella in this situation, if you like. They will simply have their own personal way of showing up, their own types of agendas, and the way it plays out, which will be different than what I'm talking about, because specifically today we're focused on demonology. Now, I've talked about before, and I should make another video on the sexual body, because it's so imperative, I think, to understand the inner workings and the energetics of our sexual body. We have a lot of bodies. We have a sexual body, physical body, mental body, emotional body, etheric body, energetic body, consciousness body, right? It goes on and on. We have a lot of different bodies, and right now we're speaking specific to the sexual body. Now, sexually speaking, when we engage sexually, and it doesn't even have to be full intercourse, but when we merge our sexual body to another sexual body, there's an immediate interlocking into a web or a network of the sexual partners and participants and experiences that both parties or each party has already had. If the person engaging has not done the work to cleanse and clear their sexual body, which I find most of the time hasn't happened, even with a lot of, spiritual warriors, maybe the due diligence hasn't been done, they haven't known how to do it. The timeline tracking of all experiences energetically are in this web. Everybody is now in the web. And through the web, one person energetically, and this happens a lot subconsciously, can access every other person or party or feel into it, and then vice versa for the other people. And now think of how big we've expanded this. Let's say you've had 10 partners in your life, right? You web into your next partner, you're already webbed into all of your previous partners, assuming you haven't done any clearing work around it. You're also webbed into all of the partners that each of those partners have had, and then they're webbed into those, and it just turned into this big, huge matrix of sexual tethering, right? And this can affect a lot of things in interactions, because subtle energies are now in the field, they're being picked up on. It doesn't mean, past people are consciously in your thoughts or your mind, but they could still be playing amok in your field, especially when you've had partners that were possessive or obsessive or didn't want to let you go, or all of this stuff. Now it's in your field, and the other person can often pick up on that, and that causes its own issues. So the demons understand that your sexual body is a very strong connection into very specific life force energy. When a demon has access to your sexual body, as soon as the engagement starts, which is going to start with a more seductive, lustful initiation, doesn't mean there's any touching happening yet, but as soon as that initiates, the demon will already be working to link in, to hack into the sexual body and begin siphoning continual energy and access. Now, our sexual body has the potential to alchemize and create through the divine spark of creator essence. The sexual body is a very specific way in which, from my take, that Spirit has offered us direct connection to source energy, which allows us to tap in and alchemize the energy into the physical 3D. Very obvious symbolic, expression of this is being able to have babies, right? That is a miracle in its own right, where we've taken spirit essence, we've alchemized it and created it into something physical and tangible. So the sexual energy is very powerful. It is very potent. The demonic realms survive off of the perversion and inversion of divinity. This is because the demons were spawned from the fall and separation from divinity. Because their born legacy, their birthright into the realms that they exist in, was a fall. It was already inverted. It was already turned up on its head. That is how they manifest into being. They now require the exploitation of spirit in order to exist, because that's how they came into existence in the first place. So whenever you're dealing with demonic energies or entities and attachments, it's always going to be upside down on its head, reversed of what is pure of spirit, because that's the way that they require navigation in order to thrive and exist. Now, some people have demonic attachments. This is a lot more common. It is very common and most likely that everybody has or is dealing with demonic attachments at some point or currently in their life. It's just such a norm in this realm. And we've talked about before, if somebody has an upbringing of a religious base, there may be a lot of fear imposed around the topic or idea of demons, because this is how most religions presented it to us. Though if we look at more philosophical based practices such as Buddhism or Taoism, demons are perceived more as coyote-like trickster players, which takes the fear out of it and allows there to be a more matching of power and self-authority, not a need to cower to them or be fearful of the demons, which is a stance I prefer to take as well, because, we have a home court advantage that I always talk about in our physical body and our emotional body. They don't have that. So if we play to our strengths, we have an upper hand. In regard to the unholy trinity, I'm going to call it, let's take a pyramid. Now, what's required in regard to keeping these demonic attachments in play for the demons is the unholy trinity, wherein which the middle is filled and chock full of lust. This is all based around lust, right? So the innards here are full of lust. We're going to have a victim aggressor mentality. Let's say we can put it on the top. We're going to have love bombing here in a corner, and we're going to have trauma bonding over here, right? We've maybe heard of this triangle before, but this will always come into play, especially if this is a sexual engagement or a situationship or relationship that is continuing. This cycle will play out continuously and will be a big part of how one stays ensnared in this experience. Now, it is less common for a person to be a demon incarnate, but it is more common than one might think. And there is a huge difference between somebody that is hosting a demonic attachment and somebody that is actually a demon incarnate acting as a normal human. A demon incarnate is going to be more dangerous, of course, and more difficult to untether from. And that can often take a lot of more advanced understanding of which is which and how it's playing out, but it will be important to clarify which is which if you're working to unsnare yourself from demonic attachments and demons in general. Demons, just like all entities, will always show their hand. It will be in their eyes. Demons specifically will, when they come out, and they will come out, let's say somebody has approached you or you're engaging in lustful, seductive engagement and sexual actions that you may be enjoying very much. I'm not judging this. I'm just saying this is where they fit in what we're talking about today. is the demon will come out. It will show itself always first. Well, the easiest catch will be through the eyes, and it will be black. They will flash black, completely black. Okay, it might disappear in a split second, but it is there and you can catch it. This is your first tell. Often you can just see them completely, like my friends were talking about. Full face, they're not hiding, they have no shame. Man, they're here to play, right? They're Lusty Lusterson, they want to get down. And all the more better for them if you see them and it doesn't really sway you, okay? So if the demon finds that you're comfortable with their presence, they'll come out that much more. But if they find that they need to hide and it might make you uncomfortable, it will just be a flash or a tell because they can't hold themselves back from that exposure. It's also going to be in the frequency of the lust, the seduction, the prowess, the aggressive, pushing boundaries type of energy. There's always going to be a press. There's always going to be some deep yearning energy, which may be a part of why you're attracted to them. Maybe you like that. Maybe you want to be pursued and you want to be picked up and thrown around in this more aggressive way. And it doesn't mean that when we're navigating those experiences, sexually speaking, this is what it is. I'm just saying, if demonic attachments are present, this can also be present and will be a tell in the type of aggression, okay? There will be a hunger here. There will be a yearning here that, outside of being enveloped in the euphoric sexual eroticism of what's playing out, if one were to look at it in perspective, take out the sexual component and just leave more of the aggressive pressing of boundaries, that might be a little bit concerning in other situations. So that's a good way to gauge it. Now, going back to the archdemons, Baal or Baal, however you want to pronounce it, and Moloch rule these domains. So does Leviathan. Leviathan is basically, in my take, the pimp of the Jezebels and the succubus energy, succubus incubus energies, which are very common sexual predators that we've talked about before. There may also be Lucifer present. You might be dealing with Satan, Beelzebub. He's gluttony and god of fertility. Baphomet, Belphegor, that's sloth. Mammon, avarice. The demiurge, which will be a much archaic energy that might be more difficult to spot. There can also be the Borg siphon and Asmodeus, okay? So if we take this all the way back to the Canaanite Baal and Asherah worshippers, Asherah was a goddess of fertility. This was a time in history where sex was used to invert and pervert spirituality, which from some perspectives gave birth to prostitution as a sin type energy, okay? Baal is a master at gaining invisibility. This is a timing that also birthed the distorted dark Lilith type energy, if anybody knows anything about this. The invisibility piece with Baal is very important because I found often enough the two heavy hitters, well, the four heavy hitters, let's say it this way: Lucifer, lusty, seduction, pleasure in that. Satan tends to have the more perverted, horrific type sexual engagements. Baal and Moloch have showed up a lot in clients' energy fields. I've found them in my energy fields plenty around the marriages. They have taken a lot of time throughout the ages to do a lot of those ritual virgin marriages, energetically speaking, or physically throughout the timelines. So these are some of the archdemons that you may want to look for if you know how, that will be on the top of the hierarchy that you might be dealing with. And in order to clear all of this thoroughly, not just as a band-aid, not just clearing one demonic minion or the nest of demons you may find in yourself, because it's very common to people to have demonic nests. My mentor likes to talk about how they come in groups of 7. So that might horrify people, if you think or somebody tells you you're dealing with demons inside your being, but it's super common. It happens all the time in a lot of different ways. And you might find nests in you of 7 deep, right? 1 for each chakra, maybe we could say. But understanding who has the stamp of ownership or enslavement in regard to the archdemon is very, very important. Okay, so now going back to demonic attachments, or demon incarnate. Now, some people, depending on how long one has had a demonic attachment, it could turn into a full demonic takeover or possession, in which the demon has now gained enough access to do what I would call a full walk into the human and take over. This is a very different experience than a demon incarnate, a demon that was born through a physical womb and that has come into this world and is hiding themselves behind a human front. Most of the times, the human won't even know, or the person won't even know that they're not true spirited human, that they are a demon, but it will be in the back of their subconscious. They will have told themselves this before, they will have seen it in the mirror, but there will be a cognitive dissonance because they may not, the demon may not find it important for their full consciousness to take ownership and claim to this. There might be some lack of benefit to that conscious awareness in some regard. Demons seek both other demons and pure light energy, spirit-based energy to harvest off of when they're hunting sexually. Demons will also hunt the weak, the lustful, and the vulnerable because it makes for an easier feed. It doesn't mean that if you have a demonic attachment, you are weak, though it is common if we think about being a hunter. Why not be more efficient and go for the easier kill? It's less work, right? Now, a way to find the frequency signature within the lust is it will be in the language of seduction. As I already said, there's going to be a hunger, a hunt, and a yearning. It's in the impulse that is tempted in the target. So let's say we're taking it as a perspective of you being the target of somebody coming at you with a demonic attachment and working to seduce you or take you over by lust, regardless or not if you're enjoying it or not. Most people do enjoy it. They engage in it wholeheartedly often, and so sets the stage. But the impulse that you will feel, the target will feel in them that comes up through the lust, that is a tell in itself. Where do you feel it in your body? How do you feel it? How clean does it feel? How pure does it feel? The demons are very good at stroking egos and gaslighting. There will often be lying and corralling that is woven or embedded into the exchange. Now, when a demon has access to a host, they will begin blending their intentions and energies into the host's impulsivity, their feelings, and their sexual prowess and thoughts. So very quickly, doesn't even mean that there has to be any physical sexual contact for a demon to attach into your field. Now this demon, or all of the demons that are dealing with the exchange here, maybe 2 people, maybe more people, depending on your type of sexual engagement, right? The demons are already now immediately navigating everybody's impulsivity, their feelings, their sexual prowess, and their thoughts. When this blending begins to happen, it can be very difficult to differentiate your own thoughts and feelings from the demonics, especially when you don't know that this is happening, right? You're going to assume all of it to be yours. Now, if you want to understand from my perspective how lust navigates, please watch my video, Lust, the Dirty Details. And to understand how the energies actually function and control the user and the host, you're welcome to watch my video, How to Spot a Succubus, and or my video, Curses, How to Reveal, Clear, and Protect. I broke down the anatomy and the detailed inner workings of the energies very specifically in all of those videos. Now, once the sexual demonic attachment has occurred, there is a venom that has been injected, just like a lot of the energy I've talked about in those past videos. This will be an aphrodisiac type euphoria, right? Think of an orgasm, right? Often that energy can extend often to hours and days. There's a high from it. There's a relaxant. There is a release of hormones that can be very healthy for us, right? So as the aphrodisiac, though, of the demonic venom is still in play, the user and the host both because the demon is now controlling both parties, there will be an energy of gloating through their ego. It doesn't mean that this is going to be something that's verbalized, especially if you tend to be a more humble, reserved human, but it will be felt, right? Like, yeah, that was good. That happened. I enjoyed it. I'm the man. I'm the woman. That kind of energy, right? There will be this gloating type glow within their essence. There will be a false sense of superiority and or inferiority, depending on the type or the vein of the sexual conquest. This perspective will begin to be overlaid with the user and the host's view of external people and situations. Okay, so just like usual, whenever we're in a specific perspective or vantage point, we tend to project that out into the situation, the environment around us, and onto different exchanges with other people. Simultaneously, distrust and suspicion will begin to infest into their thoughts and their feelings. Now, this happens because demons are very suspicious. They're very distrusting. And that is because you cannot trust a demon. You should always be suspicious of a demon. Therefore, that's going to play out in their energy too. Now, inevitably, when the aphrodisiac begins to wear off of the user and the host, the coming down effect will trigger irritation, agitation, feeling irked, annoyance. There's often a bitter or resentful energy, or just a numb, detached, blasé, bland tone. I explained this very well in the succubus video. This is very indicative of how the venom and the poison works once it starts to taper off. These thoughts, feelings, and emotions can be quite passive. They might not even be noticed. It could just seem like the everyday agitation around annoying experiences at work, or road rage, or things like this, but it'll be there. There will be a more aggressive tone in the frequency, because now you don't have the fix anymore, right? Now, if this sexual encounter is a one-time event, the effects will be way more mild. Though if the demons have access to the sexual partner and continue to impulse sexual connection, maybe it's a relationship, or you're hooking up, you're dating, whatever. If it's a continual experience, the symptoms will become exacerbated, because the demonic forces require the inversion and the perversion, as we already talked about, of lust, lasciviousness, one of my favorite words, and distortion. It becomes more apparent in the scattered areas of the host's life. So now, as we're navigating and we're building up these different perverted, distorted energies within our being, and when I say perverted, I don't mean in the way that we might think of somebody being sexually perverted in overt acts, which could be criminally based. No, I'm just talking about, it could be, very well could be, all of those situations absolutely have demons at play. Though perverted simply in it being taken out of its pure form and started to be manipulated and distorted, okay? So people will start to experience this in all veins of their life. This absolutely won't just be playing out in their sexual life anymore, because when the mental body and when the mental body starts to be taken over and the emotional body starts to be shut down, because there will always be a shutdown of emotions, it'll be more common for a host of demonic attachment or demons to have a lot of feelings, but not necessarily access to their emotions. The demons will want to block people off from their emotional base. There will be more of a numbing, less heart connection, but feelings, feeling angry, feeling hateful, feeling lustful, right? There's a difference. Now, the hellish realms are upside down in relation to our normal orientation in life. So because of this, with demonic attachments, life begins to feel as if it's being turned upside down, because the demons need it that way in order to exist and thrive. The longer the attachments remain, the more distorted life becomes and the more difficult normalcy becomes. And this can be very difficult to pinpoint. This can be very difficult to connect the dots and why this is starting to happen in various avenues of people's life, because they may not seem associated by any means to their sexual encounters in their sexual life. But our sexual energy is our life force energy. It is our vitality. So it is connected to all areas of our life, regardless if we're practicing sexual connection with other people. Even if you're celibate, your sexual life force is still a huge component in your health, right? Sexually speaking, the light body fractures and begins to splinter more and more with these demonic attachments. Now, the more the fracturing happens, the more this leads to the host and the user needing to seek out more perverted and lascivious-based sexual conquests. This can range from anything. This can be, minimal, just being more lustful and impulsive in general. Their thoughts being more lustful and sexually engaged. Them being more further removed from heart-to-heart connections. Everything is now just physically driven, or maybe it always was, and that becomes a bigger compulsion. This can be even more in-depth with more scandalous style encounters or actions through sex. This is regardless if this is their own personal self-masturbation practices in monogamous connections or with multiple partners. Or utilizing sexually geared industry services, what have you. It runs the gamut because everybody has their own comforts in expansion or the way in which they close into their sexual needs, desires, and expressions, right? All of this is frequentially speaking. So even if the way you're navigating your sexual pursuits and sexuality in general doesn't at all reflect anything that anybody else would ever deem unhealthy, with the demonic attachments, the tell will be in the way the frequency has shifted. Are you thinking, feeling, experiencing about it differently? Even if it's still deemed as healthy engagement, what has shifted in the way you're approaching and experiencing, receiving, and engaging it? It's all frequency based, right? Now, as I said, over time, the emotional body disconnects from the sexual body. This is very important for the demons. The feeling now becomes more sensational. It's more physical. It's more tactile based. It is very void of emotional connection. The irony in this is the more that people with sexual demonic attachment, sexually transmitted demons are engaging, the more the sexual engagement, the further away the emotional connection is going to get. There will be a chasm created between the heart spaces of self and the other partners, which is a very important piece to happen for the demons, because the demons utilize this chasm as a nest for their demonic babies and their own beings, right? The bigger the chasm, the more comfortable they can cozy in there and not have to be concerned about imposition of heartfelt engagement or emotions that make them very uncomfortable. Genuine emotions and, heartfelt expressions make them squirm and run for the hills. They don't like it. They may stand and experience it, especially, if this is partner to partner and somebody's confessing their love, but inside they will be squirming. It will make them very uncomfortable. So now eventually sex will be completely taken over by the demons having sex with other demons. So when you've got, two people engaging, they both now got demonic sexual attachments. At some point, the demons are just going to be using them as flesh vessels. So the demons are having sex with demons. It'll still feel erotic. It'll still have the physical sensation, but they will be much further removed. It'll be a lot easier for the people to go into fantasies where they're thinking about other things or other people's while they're here. They're not really present. They're feeling into it, but there's a big obvious void. There's even the dissociation. It's like they're pulled back from their body in a way. And the exchange is so carnal that the only ways in which they are feeling the physical connection is through a very carnal, aggressive type energy. Even if it's a soft sexual exchange, there is that very different type of primordial hunger engaging, rather than the more connective, heart-based, innocent type exchange. Now, because of this void of emotional connectivity, this is one big reason that those that have demonic attachments will start to seek infidelity, or always have. Again, I'm not saying that people that move into what their partner would deem as infidelity have a demonic attachment. They don't mean that. But what I am saying is that when you've got demonic attachments, usually infidelity will come hand in hand. And infidelity, as I've talked about before, has many variations of expression depending on, each person's comfort in boundaries and what they deem as infidelity. This could have to do with emotional, intellectual, of course, sexual, financial, social, flirtations, etc. Infidelity runs the gamut, which is highly dependent on the comfort zone and the boundaries of the people engaging in the relationship, the situation, the sexual encounter, what have you. It's perspective in a lot of ways. Now, it's quite commonplace for people to have demonic attachments at any and all points in their life, as I've said before. And sexually is only one way that demons attach. They can do it in a variation of forms, but sexual attachment is a very easy way for demons to come in, and it is a very thorough way for them to anchor for the long run. When the sexual body is hacked, there is always a potential for other entities, technologies, and siphons to take advantage of and access into the sexual body. Sometimes the demons, especially if it's an archdemon that you're dealing with directly inside your being, will fight to maintain their monopoly over the ownership, the enslavement, the contract. But often, if it's not an archdemon, or they're making other agreements with other entities or energies, the siphon, the portal, or the vessel of energy that's being leached out through the demonic attachment, it's kind of like a big neon sign to a lot of the other entities and energies that would love to feed off of what we call loosh in metaphysics, your life force energy. And so now it just starts to bring in all sorts of entities and players and energies, and they're all just kind of fighting for the feed, right? Now, when that starts to happen, there will be a lot of energetic drain out of the human. There can be a lot of there always is a lot of energetic drain when you have demonic attachments, though there's a whole nother level to it when you're now dealing with multiple types of energies and entities, what have you. Now, going back to for a minute in what I was talking about in regard to the sexual webbing and network that is always established in sexual conquests and engagements. It's long-standing. It stays in people's fields. Often I have looked at clients and we're specifically looking at their sexual body to do a sexual body clearing. And I can view it all the way back into other timelines, which is very common for a lot of us that know about our other timelines and karma. We're acutely aware that a lot of the partners that we have attracted into this timeline are attracting right now are other soulmates, other players in other timelines, right? That speaks to how strong the network, the sexual tethering can play throughout time and space. The sexual body has the frequential energetic component that supersedes time and space, right? It is more omnipotent in that way. Now, something that a lot of people who study or have experienced the covert world understand, that a very long-standing practice, especially with the sex kitten programming, is a Sex kitten could be male or female, right? Somebody who has been programmed, handled, and primed to move in, to infiltrate a certain situation or agenda through sexual engagement. A very obvious example of this will be Marilyn Monroe. A lot of different sex kittens have been placed into strategic positions with high-ranking figures, political people, what have you. There doesn't mean they're conscious of it. You know, if we're getting this deep into covert programming and situations, a lot of them are. Though there has been training that has embedded into their consciousness, technology and programs wherein which they are sent in to infiltrate and access information from a high-ranking individual or a person of interest through the sexual engagement itself. They access the information in the etheric network. They download it into their field. They take it with them, and then it is re-uploaded to whomever wants the information in the first place. A great example of this is the movie Johnny Mnemonic. In this movie, it's not sexually based, but Johnny Mnemonic is aware that his job role is to download information into, the chip, I think it was, in his brain, and then take it back to the buyer and upload it onto their software, and then he's paid out. He finds himself in a situation where the information that he's obtaining wasn't told this at the time, but it's way more capacity than his chip has the ability to take on, but he does it anyway, right? So the reason I'm addressing this, even though that's a more far out example of it, is that often the entities and the demons that are working and specifically targeting out specific humans, the human doesn't have to be aware of a covert hidden agenda and intention, a reason in the first place that they're even attracted to that human in the first place, and they move towards them through lust and seduction. They may be completely oblivious, usually are, right, to the agenda of the demon wanting to access very specific information or energies or essences, what have you, of that person. The demon has a target, it has an agenda, it wants access, it wants the information, it wants to grab it, okay? This can also be something that's experienced where the demon wants access to somebody else, is very aware that this human has had sexual engagement and is most likely tethered and networked to the person of interest. So therefore, the demon impulses the host to go forward and seduce the previous or current partner of the person of interest. It's the quickest way to get to them. And they know that through that, they can access their sexual body because this person is tethered to the person of interest already. Now, if you are somebody who knows that this can happen and you do your due diligence to clear your sexual body, shut that down, pull your sexual energy out of even current people, right? Even your current relationships or your past relationships, you've done the work to seal your energetic field, your sexual body. If that's to happen, let's say, demonic attachment comes in to access somebody, and they're working to move through the network and access the sexual person, the sexual partner's energy field. Maybe they want to divert to somebody else's energy, or maybe they're just doing it because it's more feed. They can get into the network and start connecting, pulling energy by proxy just because everybody's tethered, and that gives them more energy feed. If the demon does that to somebody who has protected and shielded their sexual body, the experience for them, frequently speaking, is going to be like taking a lighter to a spider web and a spider itself. It's going to immediately curl back on itself, distort in pain, and be writhing in its energy field, right? It'll be very uncomfortable. And it'll probably be so shocking to the demon that the human, the host itself, is going to let out some kind of a yelp. They don't know what's going on, but this is what's happening, right? And they will get, burned from that, basically. Energetically, it's gonna, if you think about lighting a fire like that, sometimes, the substance of a spider web won't maybe go up in flames, right? But it'll just sear a little bit. It'll recoil, and there will be singed areas to where the fire stopped, but it's going to leave burn imprint. This is what's going to happen in the field of the demon or the energetic being. I just bring this up because that commonly happens and people aren't aware of it, right? Another reason it's so important to protect your sexual body is there's a lot of information and energy and access that is stored in our sexuality. Most of us haven't tapped into the expansiveness of our sexuality, one, first and foremost, because we're so disconnected from spirit in its full potential. No one, I perceive that no one will ever reach the greatness and expansiveness and height of orgasm that they have the potential to receive in their sexuality if they're not fully connected and aligned with spirit divine. And even when you are, you have to work more and more to move into full trust and surrender of spirit to be granted the advantage of that much power and expansive into the explosive erotic orgasm that is divinity itself. There's a lot of responsibility in that, and that doesn't just get doled out to anybody, right? So it's layered, even especially when you're somebody who is very driven by lust, and you don't need love-based, connective-based sexual encounters. Sex may be fantastic for you. You may love everything you experience relative to your experience, but it is nowhere near how amazing it is and will be when you tap into, if you ever do, into your emotional connectivity, heart alignment, and spirit connection. It just isn't. But ignorance is bliss, right? Now, going back to what I was saying about, let's say the demon is trying to access information or energy from somebody who is well protected, or from another partner in their energy field that's well protected. Let's say the other person in their energy field is practicing in advance and knows not only to protect themselves, but protect their past partners because they care and don't want anything mucking about in energy that could lead back to them. When an entity or a demon comes in to access their energy field or their past partner via this other human, there is spirit-based return to sender virus, so to speak, that's built in. And once an inverted intention comes into the energy field, the frequency reads it and releases this virus that corrupts the whole system. And this can be a lot like a fail-safe that ruins all the information, can't be accessed. A lot like 007, this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds, right? That kind of experience happens. Now, also in conjunction to this, because the demon is using the most vulnerable spirit origin energy of sexuality, it will reverse the energy in the target's field and reverse the maybe more pure energy that they had into corruption and perversion. Now both fields are mired in self-destruct energies. Because life force energy through sexuality is your health. It's people that utilize modalities that are more spirit-based, energetically based, holistic-based, understand that your sexual health is very directly linked to your physical health. So your emotional health, your mental health as well. These different bodies, all these different levels of health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, psychological health, your psychological body is one I didn't mention, will begin to shut down in some form of way and backfire. And sometimes it can be difficult for those that don't have the know-how to track what's happening in these other areas of their life, these other mental faculties or emotional or psychological faculties, to track that back to their sexual encounters, promiscuity, engagements. This is a very necrotic energy that spreads like wildfire for both parties. The demon doesn't really care that he's starting it's starting to degrade the host, because it'll find a new host once this one is no longer suitable. It's already found other hosts. It's jumping back and forth and spreading its demons amongst other people the more it's engaging with other partners. Another reason it's important to identify the archdemon at the top of the hierarchy here is because if you're able to identify the archdemon, you can track the karmic history of the demon itself. What was their inevitable downfall and struggles within the timelines that they're existing in? The fated cycles that are anchored to that archdemon will be in the frequency, in the way in which the karmic looping is playing out for the host as well. Loop patterns are always happening through karma, right? These archdemons are fated to certain experiences, downfalls, and corruptions that they're constantly trying to change and alter through inversion and perversion. They're never learning how to do it in the upright, because they refuse to be spirit aligned, because that means they don't exist anymore, right? So they're constantly repeating the cycles, the fate, and the karmic loops of what they experienced before. So this frequency signature will play out in the way in which they are tethered in the field of the user and host. It'll be very indicative, if you can match it, if you can see what's happening, to the way in which the experience is happening. Now, we all know that seduction towards somebody that is addicted to lust is a very easy feat, right? That's not a hard thing to, it's very easy to seduce somebody who is addicted to lust, right? Just take lust to lust, there you go. They're open to it, that's what they desire. That's an agreement and an exchange that's inviting. Now, because of this, the gloating that is experienced by both parties through the lust automatically imbalances all of the energies. And it can be a lot like celebrating before the win is finalized. When this is happening, when the gloating and a more egotistical, up feeling high on your sexual haunches, which, I think it's fantastic to feel empowered through your sexuality. And there's a lot of much needed release and health balance that happens through sex when it's in alignment. And there is a high to it that we can enjoy. But when it's geared into the more demonic forces, it's a synthetic high, it's a synthetic gloating, which makes the fall that much more difficult. And it is, it's going to happen early, before any true energies are truly anchored. So what I mean by that is, often too, if you're spirit aligned with sexuality, you're going to tend to be more reserved in how quick you are to sexually engage, right? Because of this, it allows more time for the emotional connectivity and the mental energies, the heart-based feelings to balance themselves out with the reciprocation of the power and potency of the sexual exchange, right? Because of that, when we move into sexual engagement that's balanced on all fronts, and then we begin to celebrate it during or after the fact, the win is already happening. It's already happened, right? There is something to celebrate that has been anchored and experienced, even if it's just a one-time experience, right? Heart is open, you've connected, and that is celebratory. But when it's imbalanced and misaligned through more lustful, one-sided connection, there's a celebration before the win is finalized, because they're just celebrating the high. When that moment happens, the celebrating before the win has finalized, this is where sabotage anchors into the frequency. This will usually always be missed. And because the sabotage anchors, because there's not enough wisdom and care and humility taken to ensure that the win has happened, it will be overlooked and undervalued, right? It will be dismissed because it wasn't acknowledged in the first place. It wasn't a requirement for the sexual engagement. All that was required for the sexual engagement was physical touch, connection, and lust, right? So when the sabotage anchors, often the karma will be a massive fall from grace because of the arrogance that overtook the strategy, if that makes sense. So the gloating and the win is where the sabotage anchors in the timing. When that anchors in, the gloating itself and the arrogance and energy that plays out in that keeps the host from looking at what's going on. And it ensures that at some point, usually there's going to be some breakdown. This often happens with, a lot of drama and trauma. Let's say it's infidelity or whatever, betrayals, or this can be ghosting. This can be there's all sorts of things, right? But it becomes apparent in the way it plays out. And the moment it anchored, the sabotage anchored in was through the gloating itself. Now, if somebody's realizing all of this after the fact, and the big blow up has happened or whatever's happened, the falling out, and it doesn't have to be something so outwardly dramatic. This can just be the bottoming out of the energy itself. If you go back to the moment in which the sabotage anchored, the gloating was happening, being high on your horse, where there's not really a lot of substance and backing to that, you can track when the downfall began. Now, a lot of people are highly addicted to demons. I was for a very long time. It took me a long time to realize this. And I find it very common, so many people are deeply in relationship with lust and seduction, and in this fast-paced world, a lot of sexual exchanges are very casual, and are just kind of recreational. So it's way more common than people think. But so it could be, something that people enjoy and want to partake in, and there's fantastic learning lessons in all of this. So it might not even be a negative thing for somebody who's enjoying it. Though if you're somebody who's working to get out of that or recognize this, it's important to start to look at where and how you are attracted and addicted to demonic forces and energies, and or how you're vulnerable to it. When you start to reverse engineer what's going on, if it's something that you're working to get rid of or clear out of your space, start to look at what initially attracted you in the first place. What grabbed you? Was there substances in it? Was it just attention? Was it just lust? Was it just somebody was coming on you? Was it just impulse in your loins that you wanted to move forward through? There's so many tells when you slow it down, and usually it's in hindsight. You have to start looking at what's going on. What's driving you towards it? What's happening? It's always going to be in the exchange of energy and the dialogues and the communication. It will always be shown to you, even if you're not seeing the forest for the trees, right? I hope this video was informative for you guys and you enjoyed it, got something out of it. Thank you so much for taking a second to like my video. If you are interested in one-on-one classes, coaching, courses, please contact me at worldpeaceprojects.global. I hope you are fantastic. Good to see you guys. Take care.